Welcome to another video by Flat Earth Trads. Please subscribe, like and share it.
This video is an introduction to the Flat Earth for Catholics by Catholics. Many have heard of the Flat Earth, and there is no shortage of information regarding it, but there is little from the Catholic perspective. Catholics are at a loss of what to think. This video will provide a brief introduction to the topic. For further research, we direct you to our web forum flatearthtrads.forumga.net, the link provided below, which is still in development, and if you cannot find the answers you require, you can either pursue the recommended links or send us an email at flatearthtrads@gmail.com. It is important to state clearly that the Church was flat earth for the first 1,500 years of its existence. In fact, there have always been Catholics who have been flat earth up until the present day, albeit keeping quiet about it. The reason is simple, because it is the truth and God has made man for the truth. Almost all ancient cultures accepted the earth to be flat, to name a few: the Jews of the Old Testament, the Babylonians, and the Egyptians. This is because of the infused knowledge given to Adam and Eve, passed on through the generations combined with simple common sense. The globe earth idea is not a new one either. It began with the Greek philosopher Pythagoras, an occultist, and continued through Aristotle, Plato, and some other philosophers all the way to the present day. It is especially since the founding of NASA and the images presented to the public purporting to be the Earth that the issue became settled. However, there were always flat earthers in the wider world, and the issue was quite a hot topic toward the end of the 19th century. We will show you some of the proofs with which you can see for yourself the truth of our proposition and the absurdity of the round earth theory, even if it seems that the whole world is for it. They are scientific, even if there are not journals supporting it. This should go without saying, and yet many need this explained because denial of the Holocaust or creationism are topics which are not supported by public authorities either, and yet good Catholics know them to be true. The first and best is the use of lasers and flags to show that over water the curvature of the earth does not exist. Both flat earthers and round earthers agree on the circumference of the earth, approximately 25,000 miles. If those 25,000 miles form a ball, as we see in the NASA photos, then there must be a fixed rate at which it curves. That rate of curvature is 8 inches per mile squared. This means that after the first mile, it drops by 8 inches, the second 32, the third 6 feet, all the way down to 1.8 miles of a drop after 120 miles distance. Knowing that water is level, it must conform to that curvature perfectly if it is still. The Bedford level experiment in the 19th century, using flags in a canal put at fixed certain points, was able to show that the last flag was perfectly visible like the first. If the earth was a ball, it would have descended. Closer to our day, some Hungarians using lasers over a lake were able to show this lack of curvature. We present on the screen their findings. The second most glaring and more accessible reason is the visibility of objects over the horizon. If the Earth is a ball, then after a certain point, looking straight out over the horizon, objects should start to disappear the further they go away. In fact, we can calculate exactly when they should be beyond visibility, with various Earth curve calculators available online, provided by people who have nothing to do with the flat Earth. The problem for globe earthers is that there are consistently objects visible that should not be visible. Historically, we have many examples of this, but closer to our day, with advances in widely available camera technology, people can see for themselves examples of this. Here on the screen, we show snapshots of one of the best produced videos showing an island off the coast of California. The photo is taken from over 30 miles away. With the height of the camera, there should be over 580 feet below the horizon. The small islands should be completely gone, and most of the large one, yet this is not what we see. Note how steady and integral the picture is. This is important against those who try to claim that it is a mirage or some kind of refraction. If not upside down, a refracted image should not present itself with the same integrity and steadiness. The video shows this even better. There are many more examples of this. You are encouraged to go to the relevant section of our website to see them, or better still, try this experiment for yourself. The third proof is the lack of horizontal curvature. A sphere, despite what some may say, is a circle in 3 dimensions. No matter which way you look, you will always see it curve. Even if that curvature is very spread out, it will still be there. So, let's take the supposed curvature in the round Earth theory. To take one sample, as mentioned earlier, after 120 miles it dips by 1.8 miles. This applies as you look from left to right, in other words across, as opposed to when you look straight out. If anyone who has been on a plane or a high mountain knows, it is not difficult at all to see 120 miles across. Usually we see much more, and yet that drop of 1.8 miles is simply not visible. There are those who claim that they have seen the curvature from planes. As the picture we are now showing indicates, this is simply down to the curved windows on planes, which distort what you are seeing. Views from mountains are less biased and help drive home this point. This does require honesty on the part of the observer. 1.8 miles is a lot and would be visible. However, as is the case with false visionaries and other psychological conditions, if people want to see a curvature, they will see a curvature. Finally, there is the descent of the horizon. What this means is that if you are on a ball, the horizon should descend as you rise upwards. The picture here illustrates this. The horizon is the limit of your view. As you rise, you see more. On a ball, you see more of the ball, but that more is further down the ball and should therefore be at a sharper angle to you. It would appear to descend. However, in reality, this is not what happens. The horizon rises to the eye of the observer. This is consistent with a flat plane, where what the horizon is simply the limit of your vision. As you rise, you will see more of the plane, but that will always be at eye level. These proofs are scientific, simple but scientific nonetheless, because they are based on observation and can be tested. Catholic Thomistic philosophy tells us that all knowledge comes from our senses. Against the subjectivism of the modern age, we should have a strong trust in our senses, even if this goes against opinions of the world and the general consensus. So if the earth is not round, some will ask, what is it? What do you say it is? Catholics, along with the fathers of the Church and many others after them, viewed the earth as being a flat, round disk, with a dome or firmament over it, and underneath it another dome. This is the sphere of creation represented with the Infant of Prague and Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal. The sun and the moon, much smaller than what we are used to thinking them as, go over and around the earth. The sun gives night and day because it can only shine, like a flashlight, over a limited part of the earth. The seasons are because the sun changes its rotation, going over and between the different tropics and getting faster and or slower to ensure that there are 24 hours in a day. There are other possible interpretations for all of this, which we do not dismiss, but this seems the most reasonable and in conformity to Catholic theology and philosophy. Those viewers who are inclined to stop watching at this point because it sounds like complete lunacy should consider first the massive evidence, which shows fraudulent productions from NASA, which is their main support in their belief that we live on a sphere. It goes far beyond the moon landings, and with a little bit of effort, every person can see this. It should also be called into question the credibility of the organization itself. In an introductory video, we cannot enter into detail, but we provide more information on our forum. On this topic, you can research the inconsistent images of the Earth, which they admit themselves are computer-generated. The fraudulent moon landings with doctored photos, computer-generated images of planets, and demonstrably so, and not to forget the International Space Station, where astronauts are put in front of green screens with harnesses, or in zero-G planes to give us all the illusion that they are floating in space. Some claim to see the International Space Station. Indeed, there are videos available. However, this can be explained in a number of ways, such as with blimps and holographic technology, which is more advanced than people realize. Many will also ask how these astronauts seem so convinced that they are in space. The answer is most likely hypnotism. Either this or they are very good actors. However, hypnotism explains how convinced their families can be also of the events. Worthy to note also is the fact that most of the actors who went up into space were Freemasons. The Rothschild family have their own high place in the organization. But let us remember that this is all the theory of the how, which is distinct from the scientific reality of the lack of curvature. The flat earth is not a conspiracy theory, it is the way things are. Aside from this, the obvious and most glaring question is, how can so many people be fooled? Not only the multi-billion-dollar NASA, but engineers, pilots, navigators, and so on would all have to be in on the conspiracy we commonly hear. First, the vast majority of people, even in Freemasonry, are not in on the conspiracy in the sense that they know the full picture of what is going on. For most of these professions, they accept the body of knowledge they learn in their education, and if it works when they engage day-to-day life, they usually do not have the time, energy, or desire to start asking fundamental questions about the nature of what they have learned. So that let's not exaggerate things. It is sufficient for a few powerful and or delusional people who exercise high positions to keep the lie going. But this leads into another question, which is, why perpetuate such a lie? The answer is very simple. If you can get people to believe something which is so obviously not true, then you can get them to believe anything after that. When people believe lies, they are more easily manipulated and thus led into error and all kinds of evil. Just think about it. We are supposed to accept that the earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour and hurtling around the sun at 65,000 miles an hour, yet we feel none of this. We see none of this either, as we see the sun, moon, and stars move around us and not vice versa. With our eyes, we look out across the horizon and see a flat horizon, and we can measure this. Planes go up and down and across our earth, and yet never take into account the supposed curvature by descending downwards. This is not just any lie, however. This is a lie concerning the very foundation of our creation which touches on the supernatural, because after the dome is heaven, and below the earth is hell. Thus, in looking at the earth and sky, man is led to think of God much more quickly and easily, and in an immediate fashion. We are told, especially by intellectual Catholics, that all this is possible with an expanding universe of galaxies coming from a Big Bang, which God started, and plonking man in on this earth in one corner of the universe. And don't forget the mind-blowing speed we are going at in all ways. However, not only is this model completely contrary to sacred scripture, but philosophically unbecoming, due to the lack of centrality of the place of the incarnation, and the idea of constant and irregular movement. We can also add the utter pointlessness of creating suns and planets billions of light years away that we couldn't even see and never would. It was with this spirit that the Holy Office condemned Galileo when it said that he was suspect of heresy, namely, of having believed and held the doctrine which is false and contrary to the sacred and divine scriptures, that the sun is the center of the world and does not move from east to west, and that the earth moves and is not the center of the world, after it has been declared and defined as contrary to Holy Scripture. To this, many will respond that the Church has since moved on, accepting modern science because it gives us proofs of its claims, even if this is against what the Church has said for 1,500 years. We now come full circle, and this is precisely why we at Flat Earth Trads are so insistent in showing the science which debunks these claims. With modern technology such as high-zoom cameras, lasers, and planes, it is simply untenable for an objective, honest person to maintain the theory that the Earth is a round ball of 25,000 miles across. In an earlier video, we gave clear citations from the Fathers of the Church, which showed their opposition to the idea of a round Earth. Beyond this, St. Augustine believed that the firmament to be solid, and other fathers discussed the movements of the sun and stars. Sacred Scripture abounds with references to the circle of the earth, the firmament, and the heavens, and the waters above the firmament. The Magisterium has made clear that Catholics are entitled to interpret Scripture literally, and all the more so when science supports it. Flat earthers are in no way opposed to scientific discovery, but true science has to be based on reality and not the pursuit of fantasies. If we spend time and energy trying to get to an outer space that doesn't exist, then we have lost what could otherwise be spent on other legitimate, worthwhile discoveries. Finally, we must touch on gravity, because this is a catch-all theory used by globalists to explain things they don't understand. It is important to state from the outset that gravity is just a theory. This is acknowledged by scientists and yet forgotten by many. As such, this means that you can disagree with it. Legitimate flat earthers are opposed to the idea of gravity for various solid reasons. First, there is no example of larger objects drawing in smaller ones by the simple fact of their size in real life. We are simply told that this is what pulls the planets around the sun. Secondly, gravity somehow pulls oceans and yet does not affect inland lakes or ponds. The National Ocean Service says, for example, that the variation in the Great Lakes is not caused by gravity, and yet this is completely inconsistent. What causes objects to fall most likely is simple density. Objects that are denser than the medium surrounding them fall down. The non-existence of satellites is another logical consequence of accepting the flat Earth. There are solid reasons for rejecting them based on what scientists themselves claim. For example, the temperature of the thermosphere where they are supposed to float is far higher than the melting point of the metals they are made of. They have never been questioned before because they came about right at the time when everybody accepted once and for all that the Earth was round. There are many objections to the flat Earth, such as the supposed account taken for curvature and rotation by various professions. They cannot be dealt with in this video. We will say, however, that there are now engineers, pilots, and navigators coming out in favor of the truth, and there will be more. We direct you to our forum or to our email. So to conclude, the truth of the reality of God's creation is based on solid scientific evidence, tradition, and Holy Scripture. It cannot and will not go away because it is the truth, no matter how many people, even if they be Catholics, try to stamp it out. Thanks for watching.
We hope that you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like and share.